So, welcome to today's talk, and once again, thanks to Ish and the Sangat for inviting me. There's only two reasons why you might invite somebody back: either because you want more of what they've got, or because you want your money back, or you want to beat them up. Hopefully, you haven't invited me to beat me up. I think so. This is me. I'm a professor of sociology at the University of Warwick, so I'm not really a Sikh studies person. So it's more of a personal kind of hobby. I haven't really studied, I haven't done any formal qualification on Sikhi. But I'm interested in philosophical questions. My first degree is in science, so I'm kind of trained scientist, but I moved into the social sciences and philosophy and sociology and just about everything else. So I kind of feel like I can come at these questions from every angle, which I think is important as well. So hopefully I'll try and reflect those different ways in which we can come to that. In fact, one of the things I do say is that in philosophy there's this thing called epistemology, which basically means the theory of knowledge. Yeah? Now we might think that there's just one theory of knowledge, but there isn't. Even if you go back, say, in human history, say you go back to, say, 500 years or 1,000 years, people's reference points were different, yeah? So what we might think today as a superstition then was seen as truth, yeah? Can you see? Because they had a different epistemology, they had a different theory of knowledge. Science itself has its own epistemology, yeah? Reason, rationality. And therefore that's something that we've got to be careful of, that distinguish between that which is kind of universally true and that which is simply understood through a particular framework, particular paradigm, if you like. And that's difficult because we don't know whether we're speaking within a paradigm or we're speaking a universal truth. But certainly Gurbani talks about universal truth. Yes, Sat means universal, timeless. And that's why this notion of timelessness is important, because timelessness itself reflects this sense of something that's beyond time. So it must be universally true, yeah? So how do we understand a universal truth if we're all trapped in time? Does that make sense? And that's the kind of paradox that we're trying to deal with today. So I've just got a few points that I'm going to... So Gurbani does not seek to provide factual, scientific or mythological accounts. So it's neither offering you a scientific version or myth, okay? It's offering something else. I say mythological because everything that the Gurus spoke about was spoken out of experience, out of their lived experience. So in that sense, it was factual. And they tended to reject that's spoken in myth. That's why there's a kind of separation between, say, Vedantic mythological texts and Guru Sahib's. And that's probably most perfectly demonstrated in the story of Haridwar, when Guru Nanak starts throwing water towards to his fields, and so the Pujari said, you know, what's going on? And we know the kind of story. And Guru Nanak said, well, how can your water get to the Suraj? And he's basically saying, teri mythological, this is your myth. So he was dispelling myths, okay? So Guru has his own science, but it's not the science that we might be talking about today. It's really important to do that, yeah? It's an attempt to enable us to realize the meaning, purpose of human life and the divine. So Gurbani, that's what it helps us to. Now, I put the word divine rather than God, because in nowhere in Guru Granth Sahib does Guru talk about God, yeah? Always it talks about different characteristics of divinity. So even Akaal is a characteristic of the divine, yeah? The timeless one. There's no word for God in Sikhi. I know there's Kirtam Nam, these are descriptive nouns, yeah? Kirtam Nam Kathe Meri Jeba. But what is the true name? Sat Nam Tera Paraburbla. And what does Sat mean? Timeless. Okay? So Guru says that which is timeless, that which is beyond infinity, if you like, yeah? Is limitless, cannot have a name, by definition. So that's why we use the word divine, yeah? And divine means something that is beyond our own kind of human limitation. Okay? Is that okay? Gurbani also offers ethical principles that speak to all faiths and none, to kings and paupers, rulers and ruled. The Gurus were not always addressing Sikhs. In fact, the early Gurus were not addressing Sikhs at all because there were no Sikhs. Where they went, Guru Nanak didn't go looking for Sikhs to give them a katha so he can get some money like the Gyanis do. He's just encountering anybody. And in fact, that's why he Jagat Guru Baba ne kiya. Guru Nanak speaking to the whole of the world, whole of the universe. And so we have to understand his message, not within our own Sikh framework, which really emerges later on when we establish institutional Sikhi, yeah? Guru Nanak doesn't really, the first institution is Kartarpur Sahib, where he comes and, Fir Baba Kartarpur. So we have to understand these messages not as our personal property. We have to understand Guru Nanak is speaking to the whole of you. He's speaking to the Muslim. He's speaking to the Qazi, Brahman, Pandit, everybody, yogi. Okay? So bear that in mind. Sikhi is not a religion, but a set of ideas, thoughts, experiences that seek to give meaning to life. What is it to be human? And that's one of the basic questions. So Guru says, Gobind kiya. Gobind is a planet. But again, Kirtam Namya, it means, again, the timeless one. Ode na milan ti teri bariya. Akaal na milan ti teri bariya. Paramatma de naal. Give it many names you want, but ode na milna tusi. And Gobind, Sab Gobind hai, Sab Gobind hai, Gobind milni koi. So here, Gobind isn't just you use a metaphor of the planet because it's such huge in our perception when we look at the sun. But what he's saying is that the whole of the universe is Gobind. Okay. Humanity has the potential to do great and good deeds, but it also has the reverse, the struggle of good over evil, if you like. Is personal, related to the human ego and duality, or non-belief in oneness. Dubda. Bani Chak Shabad, Dubda dur karo live lae. Oh, Dubda kiya. Dubda means duality. Okay, duality is where we think that there is a separation. That's duality. And because we think God is out there somewhere, then in our own kind of way we do things where we think God's not watching us. When we do bad things, when we go to the Gurdwara, we can be biman jane the Gurdwara ke. And when we go outside, that's duality. We position God in some other place. And that's what the Gurus said. That's why we don't do these pilgrimages, because we don't go looking for God in other places. Because ultimately God is within you, but we don't realize that. So when we look for God elsewhere, we are simply reflecting that duality, dubda, which is the main problem. So, and dubda is the opposite of oneness. Ik, onkar, oneness. So ultimately we're trying to get to a state of oneness. And again, timelessness and oneness has a very interesting relationship. Yeah? Out of the one comes the many. And we know that from the Big Bang, yeah? From the kind of origins of the universe, everything comes from that. So we are all made up of stardust on a cosmological level. We can accept that, yeah? That every one of us is made up of stardust if we accept the theory of expansion. So we are all from that one. But does our mind think of that way? Yeah. Because if it does, then Nako Beri Naya Biganna, Sagal Sangham Guru Nanak said, then there is no other. But we live our lives 24/7 thinking about others all the time, yeah? So that's another big struggle for us. How can we get out of otherness? And Sikhi de ਵਿੱਚ ਸਭ ਤੋਂ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ otherness at the moment, ਜਥੇਬੰਦੀਆਂ, families, in every sense we've become othered. The universe does exist. In Sikhi, it's not an illusion. Okay, it's not an illusion. In Vedanta, the universe is an illusion. And this is a really important distinction between Vedanta and Sikhi. There's lots of common with Vedanta. Why wouldn't there be? Because but there's really subtle, crucial differences. The universe does exist, but we come to know it through our unique human consciousness or the mind. And Guru says that ਇਹ ਸੱਚ ਆ, ਕੁਦਰਤ ਸੱਚ ਆ, ਪਰ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਮਨ ਦੇ ਰਾਹੀਂ ਸਮਝਣਾ, your own mind. And actually, Guru Nanak said that, but also a European German philosopher Hegel also said something similar. He said the mind produces knowledge, and knowledge transforms the world. Gyan, ਆਪਾਂ ਗਿਆਨ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ, same thing, which can and has been transformed. So we've transformed the physical world, yes. AI, ਐਵੇਂ ਤਾਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਡਿੱਗਿਆ ਉੱਪਰੋਂ. Industrialization, we've changed the shape of the planet. Human beings, how have we done that? Man de naal. We talked about the human brain earlier, didn't we? It's the human brain that is changing the shape of the planet. It's destroying the planet. So the human mind has great capacity to destroy, but it also has great capacity to do wonderful things as well. There's a René Descartes, French philosopher, also said something important. He said that human beings we are thinking beings, and that's called res cognitus. You've heard the famous "I think, so therefore I am," yeah? Ergo sum cogito. This is Descartes' basic proposition. And what Descartes said was that we only know the world out there through our five senses. Sight, hearing. If you cut the five senses, then the world out there becomes dark, blank. Yes, that was Descartes. So he says, I think, so therefore I am. Res cognitus. And in that space, there's no physical restriction. Yeah, because in the mind, anything's possible. Yeah? In the mind, you can become a king. In the mind, you can fly. But in the physical world, you can't fly. So Descartes said there are two beings. There's a thinking being, which is this res cognitus. There are no physical restrictions there, so any miracles can take place. You can have supernatural experiences. Hands up if you've, it's like dreaming. You know, when you dream, hands up if you fly when you dream. We do. So, you know, we can have karamata, you can visit your relatives, long dead, you know, we can go into the past, in the future, whatever. But then he says this res extended being. This is where all it's physically governed by the laws of nature, kudrat de nijam. So, इसी तरह गुरु साहब भी कहते हैं, एक कुदरत है, सच्ची तेरी कुदरत, सच्ची तेरी कुदरत. So, कुदरत निजम भी सच्चे है, the laws of nature, physics सच्चे है. तो एक थोड़े अंदर है, ठीक है? Same thing as Descartes. अंदर दे विच laws of nature नहीं operate करते. अंदर होर कानून करते हैं, बाहर laws of nature है. And Sikhi tries to not to disrupt that, because जो तुसी बाहरों तुसी कुदरत दे निजम कहंदे में बदल लोगे, then you're disrupting what Guru कहंदे ओ सच्ची है कुदरत सच्चा है. Okay, so there are some of the assumptions that, and there's many concepts in Sikhi. You could say that these are the apex concepts. You know, something we haven't really understood them. You know, of Waheguru, of Hukam, Simran, Karta, and you know, one of the most key concepts is Akaal. I would say it's probably one of the, if you like, apex concepts in Sikhi. And because it's so fundamental, it's all that more difficult to understand. But we'll make an attempt today. If you've got a question while I'm talking, please just shout out. Yeah.
Can you talk about the consciousness?
Yeah.
How do you differentiate?
Conscious and subconscious. Well, the question is, what is the conscious mind and what is unconscious mind? Yeah. So in psychology, we have these different states of the mind. Yeah. The subconscious. Freud talked about that, and that's a mind that does function, but we don't know about it. And you could argue in Sikhi, Kaam, Krodh, Lom, Ahankar. so ego is the subconscious. And when I start shouting to somebody and say, "Oh, your ego's working," he says, "No, it's not. You're wrong. I'm right." We don't see what's happening, and there might be a whole set of reasons why I'm hostile towards that person, because subconsciously, that person might resemble somebody that abused me or in childhood, for example. Yeah, that's Freud. So there's a subconscious mind, there's a conscious mind, then there's an unconscious mind. Yeah, so there's all these different variations. Sikhi Mata, Bodha, Chit, Hake concepts, and it talks about those. Mata bhi mind cho ya thodi matni, buddhi bhi mind cho buddha, vivek, buddhi bhi mind diya. So there are these different states. Okay, we can't really go into that, but that might be another topic, is consciousness. Okay, but good question. Right. This is an interesting Gurbani. Remember, I said Gurbani is not offering a scientific view of the world, but Gurus are offering their own interpretations of the physical world. Does that make sense? Because the Gurus are observing the universe around them, and then that they are using their own interpretation. And here's a beautiful, this is from Bhagavad Pipaji, that this idea of the universe in the body is not new. Like Descartes talks about that, the universe within. Pipaji kende ha, it's in Guru Granth Sahib, you can look it up. Kayo Deva, Kayo Deval, Kayo Jangam Jati, within the body of the divine is embodied. Within the body, the divine is embodied. The body is the temple, the place of pilgrimage and the pilgrim. So it's very much focusing on the body. Kayo Tup Deep Nebeda, Kayo Pujo Pati. Within the body are incense, lamps, and offerings. Within the body are the flower offerings. So here Pipa is critiquing the ritualistic, Brahmanical kind of external rituals, lamps and all these other things, pilgrimages. Okay? Kaya bo khand khojte navne dapai. He says, I've searched throughout many realms, but I've found the 9 treasures within the body. Again, it's critiquing the idea of an external God. Because in the Judeo-Christian viewpoint, there is this sense of what's called an anthropomorphic God, a man-like God, Baba, kind of classically as an old bearded man. And that's a very comforting image of God, because it reminds us of our grandfathers. And not for everybody, but most of us, we loved our grandfathers, yeah, more than our fathers, because they do things that our fathers wouldn't, yeah. So you can see why that image of Baba, God, pervades. It's in literature, it's in movies, it's when you watch, everything. But Pipaji is saying quite clearly, "Eh Rabb nahi sada Rabb." So he says, "Na kash aibo, na kash jaibo, Ram ki dohai rahao." So this is rahao tok, which is the central point. Nothing comes and nothing goes. I prayed to the. So here is the sense of timelessness that he's already invoking. What does a timeless God look like? Akaal. Yeah, what does a God that is beyond time look like? Can that God be this anthropomorphic, I can't pronounce the word, anthropomorphic God, this human body-like God? And then this is the Jobra Mande, Soi Pinde Jo Koje Sopai. That which pervades the universe, Jobra Mande, also dwells within the body. Soi Pinde. Whoever seeks him, find him there. Pipa pranave param tat hai satgur hoye likhave. Pipa prays, the Lord is the supreme essence. He reveals himself through the true Guru. So again, Pipa is saying, Baro nahi labh milna, andro hi milna. But that doesn't mean Bar doesn't exist. And if we believe that Paramata da sari pasi, then it exists outside and everywhere, but we as a human being can only realize it through our mind. That's the point of it, yeah? That's why we have to focus on the mind. And I say that because in the physical world, there's a real problem with timelessness. because in the physical world, everything happens according to time. But within the mind, you can speed time up, you can slow time down, you can freeze time. Have you ever been in an accident or a situation where you felt this existential threat? I don't know, but one experience is that sometimes time just slows down. I've had that experience. All your life, all of a sudden, you can see it within, and it's only in a split second. And, psychologists have researched this. Actually, you are slowing down time. Because in your mind, time doesn't function according to the clocks. Yeah? That's why sometimes you can go throughout a day and it feels like it's just gone like that. And other times you can go throughout the couple of hours, it's dragging on. Have you had that experience? Because that's a subjective sense of time, yeah? Okay, let's move on. There is a scientific, science now is, cosmology is more and more interested in time, yeah? Anybody heard of Stephen Hawking? He would have read his book, A Brief History of Time, yeah? And that's his first one, and that's where he talks about black holes. And where he says that the origin of the universe is a state of timelessness, of 0 point, yeah? And his theory is that time, and you can, from Newton as well, you can draw a similar conclusion, that time is correlated to entropy. Anybody know what entropy is? Entropy is the degree of chaos. Yeah, I'll give you an example. Say you've got a glass of water, and you drop in some dye. So what happens to that dye? When the drop falls in, it kind of slowly spreads, doesn't it? That's entropy. So what Einstein says is that time is the degree of entropy, the degree of chaos. So in that singularity at the beginning of the universe, there was 0 entropy. Yeah? Because there was 0 diversity in the universe. Does that make sense? And then when you get the Big Bang, you have expansion, you have cooling down, or whatever you want to call it, and you have elements being created, compounds being created, time itself is born. So that also it's called the forward arrow of time. And that's why some cosmologists said that you might be able to go forward in time, but you'd never be able to go back in time, because the arrow of time is always forward. It's called time dilation as well. Let's just say, so at time 0, yeah, t equals 0, at the beginning of the universe, you have the Big Bang, you have 0 entropy. But as we then move forward, we begin to see the stars forming and everything else forming. And future is towards infinite entropy, infinite chaos, if you like. That's kind of one prediction. There's another theory saying that there'll come a point where you have the big crunch where time will almost reverse. So you'll go from chaos back to oneness. Anyway, that's a different. There's also this notion of time dilation. This is really interesting. If you travel the speed of light, imagine you're on an airplane or a spaceship that could go the speed of light. What happens to time? It slows down, and if you get to the speed of light, it stops. It's called time dilation, and the experiments have proven that happens. What's really amazing about that is, what is light? Light is photons, isn't it? Particles. They're photons. And photons are real. We can see them. We can see them bouncing around. Did you know that the photons are in a state of timelessness? It makes sense, because what speed are the photons traveling at? Speed of light. And that which is at the speed of light is timeless. Yeah? Just like when you're in the spaceship and you get to the speed of light, you get into timelessness. Now, I've got a little video just to kind of It's mind. So we literally are seeing timelessness in all the photons around us. That's a physical manifestation of timelessness. It's not that simple though, but let's just stick with that. Let's see if we can get this going. No? Okay, I don't think I've got internet there. Oh, have I got any internet here? Shall we try and get some internet? Is there Wi-Fi in here somewhere? Yeah, can you put it on? Yeah, just yeah, that you. Is it that one or other networks? Let me just put that in there. It's only a 3-minute thing, but I think it's really fascinating because, yeah, go on, why? No, nothing.
Isn't time something that we have like constructed socially? Like, is it not something that we think, like we think it's like time? Is that not something that we?
It's my next slide. Yeah, I'm still in cosmology at the moment, but there is a yeah, there's sociological and psychological concept. I'll come back to that in a minute. Yeah, that's why we've got to be very careful that we don't take one understanding of time and apply that to Guru Nanak's teachings. Yeah. And his teachings are unique as well. It's another perspective. But it's a good question. How are we doing? Are we
Connected.
Okay, let's see the link. Okay, let's see. Let's just go into YouTube then. That's it. Okay, I'll just go into YouTube. I just it's just really good. This little, it's only a short clip, but it just really kind of just shows you how kind of bizarre this thing is. Let me just time. What's the video clip again? I don't want to. Where are we? Back to my PowerPoint. Well, on the picture. Oh, that could be it. Yeah, no, you're a good idea. That could be the reason. Yep.
We all experience time as a fundamental part of.
Let's try it again.
We all experience time as a fundamental part of our reality. Seconds, minutes, years, they define our existence. But what if I told you there's an object in the universe that experiences none of it? An object that is born and dies in the same instant, regardless of how far it travels. That object is the photon, the particle of light, and understanding why it experiences no time at all is a journey into the heart of Einstein's theory of relativity. The first piece of the puzzle is the cosmic speed limit, the speed of light in a vacuum. It's a universal constant, denoted by the letter c. No matter how fast you're moving, you'll always measure the speed of light to be the same, roughly 300,000 kilometers per second. This is a cornerstone of special relativity, a law that holds true for every observer in the universe. Now consider a photon. It travels at this maximum possible speed, the fastest a particle can ever go. And this is where things get weird. Einstein's theory tells us that space and time are not separate entities. They're woven together into a single fabric called space-time. And when you move through this fabric, your motion through space affects your experience of time. The faster you move through space, the slower you move through time. This effect is known as time dilation. From our perspective, if an astronaut were to travel at 99.9% the speed of light, their clock would tick much slower than ours. For every year that passes for them, decades might pass on Earth. The astronaut's experience of time is dilated. The same effect happens to space. As an object's speed increases, the distance it travels, from its own perspective, shrinks. This is called Lorentz contraction. From the rocket's point of view, the distance to its destination becomes shorter. Now let's take these two concepts, time dilation and Lorentz contraction, to their ultimate conclusion. What happens to an object traveling at the absolute speed of light? As an object approaches the speed of light, time dilation becomes infinite. From the photon's point of view, time literally stops. Its clock doesn't tick at all. And the Lorentz contraction is complete. From its perspective, the entire distance it travels, whether it's from a star to your eye or across the entire universe, is compressed to zero. The destination and the origin are the same point. This is why a photon experiences no time. It doesn't travel through a distance. It exists everywhere on its path simultaneously. For a photon, there is no journey. There is no passage of time. There is only a single instantaneous event of being emitted and absorbed. It is the most extreme expression of relativity, a reminder that our perception of time is entirely dependent on our frame of reference. For the particle of light, time simply doesn't exist. There is no passage of time.
Okay. It's pretty mind-blowing, isn't it, to think about that? And this isn't some abstract thing. The photons are real. I think we can take two things from this, in the Sikhi. One is when Guru talks about timelessness, Akaal. We have to accept there's a possibility of that. If we use our everyday kind of reasoning, then we think, what are you talking about? Because we all perceive time to be a beginning and a middle and an end. Yeah, well, that's how we live our lives. We've got our diaries. Then we think it must be hocus pocus when Gurbani talks about Akaal. But this actually proves that time itself is a perception. That's the point, yeah? So I'm going to demonstrate that as well now, so that you people can perceive that. So I'm going to try to prove to you that you are all photons traveling at the speed of light. It's a pretty big task, but we'll see, yeah? Okay? कोई करामात नहीं है कि बाबियां ते रहने दो करामातां. Right.
We all experience time.
Right. Okay, hands up if you think that the past no longer exists, yeah? Yes, you believe that the past no longer exists? Why do you think it no longer exists? Yeah, why do you think the past no longer exists?
Because
It's in the past, yeah? So in time, it doesn't exist, yeah? So your birthday, your last birthday happened in the past. So you can't say it's my birthday today. It happened in the past, yeah? You agree with that? Is anybody who doesn't agree? Okay. Hands up if you think that the future doesn't exist. Why do you think the future doesn't exist?
Because the only moment that exists is now.
Okay. So can we all agree that the past doesn't exist and the future doesn't exist? Is anybody who... And what's your name? Kinder's saying that the only thing that exists is the now. Yes? Okay. The past doesn't exist, it's gone, yes? The future does not exist as it is yet to come. Only the present exists, Kinder, yeah? So the question for me is, how long is the present? How long is the present in time? How long is it? A millisecond. So it is a distinct amount of time. Well, what if I divide the millisecond? There'll be a millisecond before the millisecond. So let's assume that the present is 1 second. But because we can keep dividing, slicing time into shorter and shorter and shorter time, an infinite number. So if I divide 1 by infinity, what does that equal? Huh? No, that's wrong. 1 divided by infinity, anybody do mathematics here? Equals 0. Yeah? If you don't believe me, go on your phones and do it. 1 divided by infinity equals 0. So if you play back the formula, so 1 divided by 0 equals infinity. That's actually mathematically correct. So The present moment is zero. It's timeless. Samjhi gal? So we are living in Akaal. We don't realize it. Mantu Jot Sroop hai, apna mool pashan. ਜਦੋਂ ਨਾ ਅਸੀਂ ਸਹਿਜ 'ਚ ਆ ਗਏ ਫਿਰ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਆਪਣੇ ਘੜੀਆਂ ਘੜੀਆਂ ਦਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਫਿਕਰ ਸਹਿਜ ਵਿੱਚ ਆ ਕੇ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਨਹੀਂ ਫਿਕਰ ਕੱਲ ਕੀ ਹੋਇਆ ਸੀ ਤਾਂ ਕੱਲ ਨੂੰ ਕੀ ਹੋਣਾ you're in the present and what some philosophers saying that life is simply a series of present moments, so think about that as your life, present moments. Yeah, so it's not like a train, it's almost like something on Star Trek. I don't know, when you kind of beam, when you beam to another, it's like you're being beamed from one moment to another moment to another moment. Yeah. That's fascinating, isn't it? Fascinating stuff.
It's a lovely way to see it.
Yeah, yeah.
There would be no anxiety if people...
Well, we won't worry. ਕੀ ਹੋਇਆ ਤਾਂ ਕੀ ਹੋਣਾ. In fact, ਚਿੰਤਾ ਤਾਂ ਤਦੇ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਕੀ ਹੋਇਆ ਤਾਂ ਕੀ ਹੋਣਾ. If we live in the present, yeah, Pinda?
Children ask you, so that's how your mind is set, or my mind is set. Your children ask you, well, are we going to go to the Gurdwara tomorrow, or we're going to stay for some casting tomorrow, or any other questions? Well, what would be the answer to that?
Well, there's two ways. You can certainly talk about the past and the present in the now, yeah? But the reality of being in the Gurdwara will be when you're in the Gurdwara. Yeah? That's the key thing. So chinta nahi karni. You don't worry about how I'm going to dress, what I'm going to look like, who's going to do this. Do you know what I mean? There's all that kind of worrying. Just allow the moment from which you decide you're going to go to the Gurdwara to being a whole lot of other present moments. So see life as a set of present moments. And if we do it like that, then we won't worry too much about the past and the present. Yeah? The past and the future. And it's like being in the present. You're reading these pop psychology books. Living in the moment. Being in the present. Yeah? Savoring that experience. Yeah? It's kind of like a psychological state of being. Sometimes, you know, when you feel overawed. Darbar Sahib, you know, when you go to the Darbar Sahib and you go down and then suddenly the Darbar Sahib hits you. You almost feel in a state of timelessness. Yeah? Because you're not interested in anything else now. You're not interested in the past or the present. You just want to savor the moment. ਇਹ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਜੁੜਨਾ in Sikhi ਇਹਨੂੰ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਬਾਣੀ ਨਾਲ ਨਾਮ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਜੁੜਨਾ. Okay, that's what it is, yeah.
But, I was going to say, a lot of people ask, like, what is hukam? And that's a nice way to explain it, that zero moment.
Well, you could, yeah, I mean, they're all connected. You know, I mean, these concepts are all connected, but absolutely you can do that. That's a really good way. Okay. Just very quickly, different faiths also have their own takes on timelessness. But it is different. So the Abrahamic faiths, they have very much a linear sense of time, yeah? And they do have this kind of, there's an eternal, unchanging Allah God, but that they do have so like they have their prophets, you know, Jesus was the first prophet, and Muhammad was the prophet. There's this sense that God reveals himself through time, through revelation, which is in time, okay? That's their view. And the future, and then there's a day of judgment in the Abrahamic faith, you know. There'll come a day of judgment, then we'll all rise to heaven or wherever, or we'll end up in hell, all this kind of stuff. So there is a sense that God is timeless, but there is a kind of time. Life is straight. It's very much the kind of Abrahamic worldview. Within the Hindu worldview, it's more cyclical. Yeah, there's a sense. I mean, the whole idea about rebirth and birth and rebirth, and they still talk about yuga. There are different ages, you know. But they say when you get to the kind of end age, then it all kind of recycles back. Okay, encompasses various beliefs, but many emphasize Brahman as the timeless being. And Buddhism has this concept of the state of timelessness as nirvana. Nirvana is this state of being where you don't worry about anything. Yeah, because suffering is what you're trying to escape in a Buddhist worldview. And to escape suffering is to escape sense of time. Because time itself creates suffering. It's like you're worrying about what happened yesterday. You're worrying about what's going to happen tomorrow, yeah? So Sikhi there's bits of all this in Sikhi, but Sikhi has a very unique take on this, and I'm just going to say what that is. And where do we discover what Sikhi teaches? Through Gurbani, through the Guru's message. Right. So let's get onto the word itself, Akaal. In pre-Sikh Indic philosophy, including Sanskrit epics, Upanishads, and Puranic literature, yeah, Akaal appears quite a lot. It appears quite a lot. And it's derived from the Sanskrit root kala, meaning to calculate, to count, or to drive forward. Signifies time, duration, season, and by extension, death. So we have this from Akaal Jalana, yeah? That's death because you've gone from time to timelessness. Yeah, we've gone to, I see Akaal te chal gaya. That's what we say when somebody dies. So that our life is in time and death is out of time. Okay. Linguistically, it is the unbounding of Kaal. So in Punjabi, sometimes when you put a before a word, it creates the opposite meaning. Yeah. So Kaal is time. Akaal is beyond time, out of time, timeless. Akaal conceptual. Okay. So Akaal then literally means non-temporal. Temporal means time. Unbounded by time. Deathless. That could be like infinite, if you like, yeah? Or immortal. Does that make sense? Okay. Akaal, that which exists outside of the creation and destruction cycle, which is sansar according to Vedic philosophy, sansarin again there. Creation and destruction, and is unaffected by birth, decay, or death. That's also part of this Puranic kind of concept of time. Akaal is primarily a descriptive adjective and not a concept in and of itself. That's one of the ways to understand it within the Vedantic concept. Everything created within it, time, is subject to change, decay, and death. So that which is out of time is not subject to change, decay, or death. Yeah, that's Akaal. So when we would say Akaal Purkh, Paramatma, God is out of time because God never changes. God doesn't get old. God doesn't decay. That which never gets old must be timeless. Yeah? The word appears to describe the ultimate unmanifest reality. And so within Vedanta, it's Brahma or the supreme deity, such as Shiva, Vishnu in specific traditions, who transcended cosmic time. Yeah? So they believe that the gods transcended time. Although, interestingly, they still depict the gods in kind of physical form. In Sikhi, we do not depict Paramatma in physical form. Totally. That's why we don't have statues or images of God. In all these other traditions, the Abrahamic Islam, there's a view in Islam that you shouldn't have any images of God. So there's that kind of influence, I think, as well. Okay. So are you with me? You can go into much more depth, but I just want you to lay that context. Sikhi then, Sikhi doesn't invent a concept of Akaal. As I said, it's already there. But it definitely reframes it and gives us a different way to see it, yeah? So because of history, Sikhi borrows from many words, including Akaal from the prevailing traditions, however it places its own unique stamp. Akaal, something that is not bound in time. Jo avinashi hai. This is from Ghan Singh Nabba in Mahan Kosh. This is his definition of Akaal. Jo avinashi hai. Nashvan hunda, something that can be eliminated. Yeah, something that can be destroyed. Jo avinashi hai. That can't, beyond destruction. Jista kade kaal nahi, that which never ends. Ate jisde kaal samay da koi asar nahi hai. So that doesn't get changed by time itself, yeah? Okay, so in that sense, the divine doesn't change. The divine is fixed because divine is out of time. It doesn't get old. We change. our bodies decay, our minds develop, because we're trapped in, as we were saying, we're trapped in this subjective sense of time. The point is to become objective. And in Sikhi, to become objective is to become one with the timeless. Then you can realize. It is the most common name for God in Sikhi. Actually, Akaal. I mean, we all go Waheguru, 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 but actually we should be singing Akaal, 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 because Akaal appears in Guru Granth Sahib many, many times. Waheguru doesn't appear in Guru Granth Sahib.
16 times.
Waheguru. Reference to Guru Ramdas. Look it up. Yeah. But now this way, yeah. So the Gurus never ever mention Waheguru. Dasan Pasha doesn't. I'm going to come on to that, but the Gurbani doesn't mention why. But they part to do, yeah. But that's a different subject. We could have a session on that.
You know, you touched on our spirit.
Yeah.
Our Atma.
Yeah.
Is Atma timeless?
Yes, absolutely.
But time is normally decayed, right? That's what we're saying.
Yeah.
Normally,
Yeah.
decay. What about knowledge? Obtaining knowledge.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I'll tell you. Science itself. Science never says. In fact, the only way science advances is by refuting its own truths. Einstein comes and refutes Newton's truth. Yeah. If you read Karl Popper, Scientific Revolutions, he says that. He said all what science is, it's explanation within the paradigm. Now we're going. AI is shifting the paradigm. We don't know where that's going to take us. Yeah. I mean, it's an interesting question whether AI will start believing in Waheguru. I did a little thing on AI. I did an experiment. I said, please, can you set out the 10 principles of what might be a perfect Dharam? And you know what it came up with? Sikhi. Do it yourself. It does.
If your Atma is timeless, but does your Atma obtain knowledge from all the time that it's incarnated?
No. Atma remains unchanged. Atma is unchanged. We cannot realize that purity within us, Paramatma within us, because we're trapped in time. So the question is, how do we get from being trapped in time to attaining this? We call it Sahajavastha, because Sahaj means timelessness. Do you know that? Sahaj means a state of equipoise, where there's no shifting now, there's no change, there's no movement. Sahaj hunda? कहना कोई सहज दे विच हो जा, तो I mean टपदा फिरदा है, सहज हो जा. Sahaj means stillness. Yeah. So when you can get to that, if you can get closer to that, then you can start to feel the soul. You can get glimpses of it. That's my kind of. I'm nowhere near, but I'm just saying. And the Brahmagyani is the one who's made that transition over. Does that make sense? Because Brahmagyani, so can you say that? Brahmagyani ape hi Parmeshwar, which means Brahmagyani apne andar Rab de naal ek ho gaya. That's ultimate enlightenment. Anyway, right. So this is the problem, which is kind of coming to your question. So this notion of this timeless being seems like a very abstract concept, because when we think about reality, an emotion, it's all in time, isn't it? I mean, we celebrate births and deaths, we celebrate achievements, attainments, and all of a sudden we're saying all this is false. Yeah? It's not false in the sense it happens, and the fact that life is real doesn't mean then we should give up on life. That's why the Guru said, "Tusi kirta karni hai, vad ke shakna." But what the Guru says is that don't stop your quest for the deeper realization whilst you live your life. That's the key thing, and that's why he says you won't find God in the mountains, or ultimately you're going to find it within your everyday lived experience. So this seems like an abstract and remote entity, but Sikhi is about connecting with the Kalpurk. So how can we relate to Kalpurk? That's your question. So that's where we'll go to next, yeah? Is this useful, or am I just talking rubbish? Okay? I mean, you can get the Gandhi in and he'll tell you the version. But he wants a wage, and he's got to come back next week. I don't have to come back. I can upset you and leave you. Question: if the divine is timeless and formless, how can we realize the divine? It's beyond our reach, we could say. Yeah, that's the question. So Guru Granth Sahib Ji, Roop na Rekh na Rang Kish, Tre Gun Te Prabh Pin. Paramatma has no form, no shape, no color, and is free from the three qualities of Maya, Rajo, Tamo, Sato. So that's Guru Bani saying that. So we have to. The first thing is we have to recognize this is the divine. The problem is we paint the divine in our own image. We make him into what we want him to be, and then we people in the other. Then we say "Fevi shanti nahi mildi," because we've commodified. We've commoditized religion. That's a lot of religion is commoditized. So people come to the Gurdwara, Baba Ji de darshan karne a. Yahi hai, Rabb de darshan karne a. दिन ਲਈ शांति ਹੁੰਦੀ ਤੇ ਦੂਜੇ ਦਿਨ ਫੇਕ ਕਲੇਸ਼ ਕਰਕੇ ਬਦਲਾਅ ਨਹੀਂ ਕੋਈ ਆਇਆ ਮੇਰੀ ਵੀ ਇਹ ਹਾਲਤ ਹੈ I'm not saying that is that a fair assessment? We've commoditized religion. ਅਖੰਡ ਪਾਠ ਕਰਾ ਲਿਆ ਫੇਰ ਵੀ ਬਿਮਾਰੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਹਟੀ ਗੁਰੂ ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਤੇਰਾ ਪਾਣਾ ਮਿੱਠਾ ਲੱਗੇ Guru saying accept the will of the divine and we're saying ਨਹੀਂ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਮੁੰਡਾ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਜੋਤਸ਼ੀਆਂ ਤੋਂ ਜਾਂ ਬਾਬਿਆਂ ਕੋ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਮੁੰਡਾ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ ਰੱਬ ਅਰਦਾਸ ਕਰੋ ਉਹ ਰੱਬ ਤਾਂ ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਤੇਰਾ ਪਾਣਾ ਮਿੱਠਾ ਲੱਗੇ ਰੱਬ ਤਾਂ ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਜੋ ਮੈਂ ਬਣਾਇਆ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਐਕਸੈਪਟ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਨਹੀਂ I want you to change that I want you to how much will you take God to give me a boy so we've turned God into a kind of a big boss who can get things done if you pay them the right price right Gur ki Murat man mein dhyan. So don't turn God into this object because that will limit your imagination. Gur ki Murat, Gur ke Shabd mantar man man. Take the mantra, the upadesh, the advice, message that's within the Guru Shabd, within the Shabd. Accept it in the inner recesses of your mind. The Murat or the form of the Guru is the inner recess of the mind, which is formless, timeless, and spaceless, will come to reside within your mind. Doesn't come, it's already there. You actually realize it. Yeah? Try it. I mean, try to think, try to have a few days maybe, or a day where you don't think about, I can't do it, I'm always checking my social media and things like that. Just have a day of timelessness and see how it feels. There's a lot of people unemployed who have plenty of days of timelessness, but that's a different timelessness. Okay. Is there a good time to remember the divine? Because that's another, if God is timeless, God doesn't wake up at one, Rabbi nahi uthda 3 ਵਜੇ ਹੁਣ ਮੈਂ ਉੱਠ ਕੇ ਆਉਣਾ ਜੋ ਤੇ ਸੌ ਜਾਂਦਾ. But we've, again, by anthropomorphizing God, we think God has times. Sunday nu ja ke Christians think that Sunday nu God is available on Sunday. Musliman Friday kende a Sabbath. We have no special time. On ਸਾਡੀਆਂ ਸੰਗਰਾਂਦਾਂ ਤੇ ਨਾ but that's because of the Hindu influence. ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਸੰਗਰਾਂਦ ਪੂਰਨਮਾਸ਼ੀਆਂ ਸਾਡੇ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਹੈ ਨਹੀਂ. Many traditions have superstitions about times and dates, but there's no such thing as an inherently bad or unlucky time that astrologers suggest. And this is largely rejected by Gurmat. Good time. While any good time is good, the pre-dawn hours, Amrit Vela, 3 to 6. Amrit Vela, such a noun, kya. When the world is quiet, distractions are minimal, and the mind is naturally calm and receptive. Maybe that's a good time to experience a sense of timelessness. Because once life kicks in, the day kicks in, then everything else kicks in. So I think that's why, because maybe that's when life is relatively still. So it's a very practical reason why we...
That sort of stays the same throughout the ages.
Yeah.
3 to 6. Stone Age and even now.
Did it, yeah? Yeah, possibly. So there's a kind of natural reason why you might want to value that moment in time. But actually, Bani also says, Din bhi gaavo rehni. It says you should remember God while you sleep, while you're waking, while you're eating, dancing, whatever you're doing. Bad time. The only bad time in Sikhi is the time spent forgetting the divine, falling into negative habits, or letting the mind consumed by ego, greed. That's a bad time. So when you're trapped in ego, that's a bad time. When you're not in ego, that's a good time. Okay?
Can I ask a question?
Yes, of course you can.
So, when you say it's a bad time to attack an ego, but to overcome that bad time, surely the best way to come out that would be to do Simran. Remember,
Yeah. Yeah, so the point is that then how can you, the practical way to overcome bad time is to do Simran. So what's the point of Simran? The whole point of Simran is to just disconnect you from those things that makes you feel that's a bad time. Do you get it? Yeah, so in a sense, Simran is a very practical way. And that's why in Gurbani, actually, there's a really interesting shabad. It says, Anjan mahe naranjan rahiya, jog jugatif paiya. It says, you walk through the fire of life, or it's called also that Anjan means dirt, dirt of life, and whilst you're walking through it, you remain clean and pure and cool. Yeah, so that's, see, we're not going to escape Kaljug. You know, we don't go to the mountains to. I mean, there's a good question there. You could say, well, that's a very nice place to have peace in the mountains, and that's why the yogis went there. That's why people go there, because they can meditate. But the point of Sikhi is not to meditate. The point of Sikhi is to live your life, householder's life, grista jivan. And whilst you're living your life as a grista jivan, then you meditate. You know. Bendiyan uthdiyan har naam te aave. Right, where are we? Yeah. Shabd maro fir jivo sadhi ta fir marna hoi. It's very clear there. Guru says that if you can become attached to the Shabad, then you die. You escape time. Yeah, and when you escape time, you become deathless. Okay. You will live forever when you die, because you escape those kind of subjective ways in which we get trapped in this time, that experiment that we did. Mantu Jota Srupa Apamupsham, we've talked about that. Man Haji Tere Naal hai Gurmati Rangman. My soul, the divine, is always with you. We just don't realize it. Mool Pashane Ta Sho Jane. Maran Jivan ki soji hoi. If thou recognize thy origin, Mool Pashane, Mool is origin, yeah? If you recognize your origin, which is divine, Ta Shaw Jane, Shaw hunda your husband. Thoda Shaw, it means your husband. And in Sikhi we have this concept of we are the brides and God is the groom. Shaw. And Sohagan, and our job is to become one with our. And that's what this Shabbat says. Know thy spouse and understand the secret of death. So when you know thy spouse, then you understand the secret of death and birth. So that's Guru Amar Das Ji. So it's back to then detachment and attachment, yeah? Detaching from the kind of ego-driven world, or maybe not detaching in the sense that we go to the mountains to escape, but detaching within ourselves, yeah? Physically we're attached, that's why the world is real. We still have to earn some money, we have to still pay the bills, but we don't allow those processes to then take us away from our own inner being. Okay. So, if we now move from the Guru period to the kind of early 18th century in Guru Gobind Singh Ji, Akaal takes on a totally different kind of meaning. Bole so nihal, Sat Sri Akaal. This is part of the Sikh greeting, the war cry Jakara, which is true is the timeless divine. Sat Sri Akaal. Okay? So even our very greeting, when we meet each other, is a homage to timelessness. Sat Sri Akaal. That's why Akaal is so central to our Sikhi. In Dasam Granth, in Bachittar Natak, Akaal is frequently praised as Akaal Purkh, the timeless being. Yeah, Mool mantra ji na ek onkar satnam karta purkh nirpau nirvair Akaal Murat. Utte Akaal Murat, yani ki timeless shape, yeah, timeless being. Itte Akaal Purkh, the timeless being. Again, Guru Gobind Singh Ji invokes the same concept. The formulation of the slogan, both as a victory, a jikara, and as a greeting, first began in the kind of Ratanamas in the court of the Khalsa, Guru Gobind Singh. So this seems to have been adopted by the Khalsa as its slogan, because it doesn't appear before. There's no records of in the pre-Guru Gobind Singh period of any of the Gurus saying Sat Sri Akal or whatever, yeah? I don't know what, some people say they say Sat Kartar. That's one version. Yeah, they say Sat Kartar. And other ones as well, I don't know. But the Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Fateh, that appears then. Senapat in Gursobha, he talks about that. He is one of the Kavi Darbais of Guru Gobind Singh. He talks about that. And in there, during the creation of the Khalsa, it suggested that those were the cries that were used in military kind of battles and things like that as well. The Mughal courts record this, so that's proving that was a very popular thing. I don't know, but in recent years it's kind of taken on a new manifestation now. So I can't even say them. Maybe you guys. All these kind of things. Yeah, there's a whole lines of them. And then Akaal at the end. Yeah, there's an emphasis on the Akaal rather than the Sat. These things will come and go. They change. But certainly in a lot of the Ratnamas, you have this Akaal invocation. By the 19th century, Suraj Granthevich, by the 20th century, Akaal became widely used in every greeting and amongst Sikh military personnel particularly. But not only that, and ordinary people. In fact, most Punjabis, Hindu bhi hone, wo bhi Sat Sri Akal kehte hain. It's become a kind of a greeting. The Sikh Rat Maryada mentions Akaal multiple times, specifically both for the name of Waheguru and directly in relation to the Jakara as well. Bole Sonial Sat Sri Akal. So it's become part of our culture. It's become part of our sense of identity as a Qaum, if you like. And then we've got the Akaal Takht as well, yeah, which was established. It was originally called the Akaal Bunga by Guru Har Gobind Pasha, but then it's symbolic. And I think why it was called the Akaal Takht was that all the other Badshah, all the other Takhts were of rulers, the Mughal rulers, of people, yeah, and of their Takhts. So Guru Sahib kende, "Eh Akaal da Takht ya." It is timeless. It's not a Takht that will come and go. So that's why in 1984, when they destroyed the Akaal Takht, they said you've destroyed the building, but you can never destroy the Akaal Takht, because by definition, the Akaal Takht is timeless. Yeah. So actually, the Akaal Takht isn't a building as such. Akaal Takht is a concept. It's a concept of sovereignty. The Khalsa is always sovereign. Okay. In fact, Khalsa itself means sovereign. I'm going to finish in a minute. Akaal Ustat. Have you heard the lines Manas ki jaat sab eke pashanavo? It appears in Guru Gobind Singh's Akaal Ustat. In fact, it's a very, very radical Bani. It's a very radical scripture. And in there it has three core themes. I'm not going to go into it, I've got time. First, radical universal unity, Manas ki jaat. All racial caste divisions. Guru Gobind Singh Ji said that very clearly. He tried to dismantle barriers of race, religion, ethnicity. All humanity shares the same divine light. And the second, the notion of the transcendent yet immanent nature of Akaal. So what Guru Sahib is saying there is, it says Akaal is ultimately timeless and universal, but we can experience Akaal if we get to a state of timelessness within our own being, yeah? And when you do that. And that's that. Sometimes I think, you know, the Rashid, I'm thinking about like Mani Singh or Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji. I'm convinced that at the moment which they were, they went into Akaal. Yeah, they went into this state of timelessness. And so, then they didn't suffer. Well, they probably suffered the pain, but it didn't let them affect it. Let it affect them. Some people say that you're Shahid, don't they know who? Or Rabbana, ਉਸ time ਤੇ ਸ਼ਹੀਦ ਹੋਈ ਹੋ ਸਕਦਾ ਜੇ ਰੱਬ ਨਾਲ ਜੁੜ ਗਿਆ. And it's also a critique of empty ritualism, which we've talked about quite a lot. And after Jaupi Sahib Ji padde na, that's what we say. That we say Ram Rahim Paran Quran, Anek hai, mat ek na manyo. Simrat Shastra Bhed sabe boped ke hum ek na janyo. Ye Akaal Ustat de vich aunਦੀ ਹੈ. ठीक है? So just to conclude, I think I've gone over the time, sorry. In classic Indic thought, time or Akaal is a powerful binding cosmic dimension from which one seeks liberation. And some of that feeds into the Sikh worldview. Sikhi absorb this frame of a place Akaal supreme over all. Time itself is merely a tool of divine creation, while the true master remains entirely unbound, birthless and deathless. Aad Sach, Jugad Sach, Happy Sach, Nanak, Hosi Bhi Sach. This is really interesting. Aad ki hunda hai? Aad at the beginning, है ना? Aad. फिर Jugad ki ho gaya? Even before the beginning of time. And I think that's a very intriguing, because modern cosmology says time, everything begins at the beginning of time, the Big Bang. But even before time existed, although we start to see. So for Sikhi, Paramatma exists before time. And then time itself is a creation. Aad Sach, Jugad Sach, Hebi Sach, that's the present moment now. What we were talking about, being in the present. Nanak, Hosi Bhi Sach, but it's a timeless truth. From past, pre-past, present, and future, that is timeless. To conceptualize Akaal through a scientific lens, we must shift from theology to theoretical physics. In science, time is not a passive backdrop, but a dynamic physical dimension that emerged in our universe. Mapping Akaal into contemporary scientific framework yields several compelling analogies, but we must avoid conflation because they come from different assumptions. Yeah? The aim of the Sikh worldview is to develop timeless consciousness, to learn to be able to live in the present. In other words, to be able to attain Sahajavastha. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. So we've been going on for about, well, actually we haven't been going on at all. We were just all these present moments. Lately, we haven't gone over time, have we?
No.
Yeah, by all means. And hope I didn't kind of go too, I'm not going to say deep because that would be arrogance. It'd be implied that you